Hello, everybody. Welcome to our AEW Revolution review. I'm John Pollock, coming at you with Wei Ting.
Welcome, John. Yes. Thank you for the time cue. I'm here.
I'm getting cues. I've got to wait. The final moments that we will always remember of Sting's last moments on a broadcast as an active performer.
Print it on a T-shirt. Etch it into, a plaque. Words to live by.
On a serious note, do you feel that more time should have been allotted for the post-match? Just knowing that was, for a lot of people, probably what they were looking forward to hearing from the guy afterwards. When you're booking him to go over in such a way, do you think that the show should have been structured to have a bit more padding at the end of it rather than this hard out that I don't think anyone would have been complaining about getting a lengthy speech from Sting at the end?
Perhaps. I mean, how long was this window? 4 hours? I mean, is it possible to go more than that? I mean, who's to say that they didn't and that they didn't structure the show so that he could have, I don't know, a 10-minute gap to be able to speak? Things change, on live television, and who knows what they were up against by the time they got to it. But I'm sure, like, we'll get the video at some point. Maybe make it an attraction for Dynamite on Wednesday.
Well, we are going to get into the show. How do you feel about Sunday night pay-per-views after we got through Saturday morning last week? I think I'll take Saturday morning anytime.
The Saturday morning might be preferable for our lives, but I mean, this is what we're used to, isn't it?
Well, get ready because AEW is only adding the pay-per-views to them, and they announced a crowd of 16,878 at the Greensboro Coliseum, which is probably dead on to what it was. The last update from WrestleTix was just over 16,000 tickets out. So the fact they gave out that number that was so close, I'm thinking this is probably right on in terms of what was in the building. Was not the all-time record at the Greensboro Coliseum. That would still belong to a WWF Unforgiven pay-per-view show from April of 1998, which a lot of it was the staging, but they got 21,427 into the building and over 20,200 paid for that particular show as well. There were also a ton of complaints during the beginning portion from Bleacher Report users in the US, to the point that Tony Khan did address them. And I guess they got things. I know I was in contact with Andrew Thompson, who was having all kinds of problems during the pay-per-view opener, but then things seemed to be rectified by the Danielson Kingston match. But Tony Khan announced during the show that they cleared the pay-per-view to be available on Fight TV as well as Bleacher Report for people that wanted to grab the pay-per-view. And I mean, that was interesting in and of itself. This is not the first time you have heard problems with Bleacher Report. And I would say generally, I mean, you and I have probably watched every AEW pay-per-view on Fight TV, and I can't remember any notable problems. I mean, other than maybe the odd buffering here or there, but I mean, I experienced nothing tonight.
I've never had issues. And I mean, usually when I hear about these sort of issues, unfortunately, it's due to people having whatever access issues on Bleacher Report.
It's Bleacher Report and it's ESPN Plus for these UFC pay-per-views. Those are the ones I hear nonstop problems with, and I'm so thankful that I don't have to encounter those. It's obviously super frustrating for a fan, and the fact that they were able to get US clearance for another carrier, I think, speaks volumes.
Well, what can you do if you're interrupting your own business? This was a backup move that they really had to kind of let AEW and Tony Khan implement, right? Certainly, maybe calls to attention. Listen, they're going to be sticking with Bleacher Report. They are fully with Time Warner, and this is sort of their vehicle. But there are
you could also order the pay-per-views, I noticed, on YouTube as well for this one.
But of course it calls to question what's being put into place so this doesn't happen in the future. Maybe on a more positive note, does it tell you the amount of interest that might possibly be there for this pay-per-view that might cause an incident like this?
I think whatever people's projections were for the pay-per-view, I think that there was so much hype for this show in the last 24 hours. I mean, today, if you were scrolling through Twitter, like, it was every wrestler and fan with like it was free promotion of Sting throughout the day. And I did put up a poll asking people the range of buys they saw them doing, anywhere from 130 to over 180. And the majority, the 31% basically, had it in the range of 160 to 180, which would be a very good number, especially if they're on the upper end of that. If they're above 180, I think this is a really, really great sign. Do you have any difference, since we talked about Friday night, of where this pay-per-view ends up, seeing the last minute hype throughout the day and a really terrific countdown show that they produced on Friday night? I just don't know how many people saw it.
I'm going to say over 180.
Yeah.
It just feels that way to me. You know, like, I mean, if the last time AEW hit these numbers was with the CM Punk, it feels to me
all in last year.
All in last year. I mean, it feels to me like it could be of a similar level of hype. I mean, it's one of those things where you might, you know, your interest might not be there even like in the week prior to it, but by the time the moment comes, you're seeing on your timeline, everybody's talking about this. It might be a last minute decision for a lot of people, and I could see that. I could see the show doing incredibly well.
The pre-show included David Crockett, brought to the Greensboro Coliseum, reunited with Tony Schiavone. They stated many luminaries are here for Sting. There may have been many luminaries. We certainly didn't see many luminaries. We saw some luminaries there.
Well, okay, what's many? You know, would you consider David Crockett, Flair, Steamboat, Nikita Koloff, Scotty Riggs? Okay,
Scotty Riggs
luminary. Who was the other person that was sitting with them?
It was Nikita Koloff, Magnum TA.
Magnum, yes.
Yeah.
That's many. Okay.
We never did see Luger, did we? Because Luger had said he was going to be attending this, but we never saw
I don't recall Luger myself. No.
So the highlight was David Crockett referring to the opponents of Sting and Darby as the Young Bucks. And he said, and he caught himself. He's like, I'm calling them the Young Bucks because, and like Tony said, because they're blucky. Yes, they're blucky.
Listen, man, he caught himself. At least it'd be one thing if he actually thought their names were the Young Bucks. We all make mistakes, okay?
Wasn't he in Captain America? The Young Bucks? Blucky. So the
Winter Soldier, Blucky. Yes.
We kick things off with the Bang Bang Scissor Gang against Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, Private Party, and like Willie Mack just like wandered into this.
They explain on commentary that Private Party have been auditioning third members, and I guess Willie Mack happens to be the current person that
they had an extremely private party with Willie Mack, and thus he is aligned with Private Party.
Well, listen, I mean, if Kate from Montreal and John Cena aren't aware of why Willie Mack is a part of this, then I know that they haven't really done much explanation at all on any of their television. So, whatever.
Max Caster continues to mess up his rap. This is an awesome character. I love this development for Max Caster. I think this is like, it's so great. I love it.
I think it's their way of trying to own, a mistake.
It's genius.
Yeah, I mean, you just take the L, okay, as the kids say, and just move on from it. I don't think this is really doing anything. I mean, maybe we have to maybe see how it plays out, because they are obviously telling a long-term story of these two teams splitting up
anymore. Okay.
Well, they've yet to explain a reason why he's messing up, and maybe they'll get to that eventually.
We've got months left. The highlight of this match, I can't say there was a ton of it, but it was Jeff Jarrett doing the Fargo strut, and then we zoom out and the whole team, including Satnam Singh, are doing the Fargo strut. Satnam Singh, okay, we see in this match, man is very limited physically, but certainly not when it comes to the strut. This man should be doing a strut in every Jeff Jarrett match, and they should be few and far between these matches.
Charismatically, I think he's excellent, and I really do feel like he's somebody they should be taking more advantage of in that department.
You know what he doesn't need to be doing though is taking Famousers. Okay, that might be where we decide. You know what, this is probably not for the best. He took a terrible one here. Anyway, this is Jarrett pulled out Bowens from the floor after this arrival mic drop spot, and then Jay White at the end gets the Blade Runner onto Willie Mack, and Jay White pins him. So that was the role Willie Mack played. He was the one to take the fall here. We can't be sacrificing Jay Lethal or Mark Quinn. So Willie Mack took the fall. 12 minutes and 24 seconds. some rough parts into this match, but it was a warm up, and I did enjoy the strut. But I'm not going to be telling anyone to sit down, pull out your pen, and write home about this match.
No. What is
Dear
that
family,
mean?
went to Greensboro Coliseum, and boy, I saw the greatest 12-man tag.
Yeah, not even worth a text, I would say, this one. But I mean, it was an okay showcase for the Bang Bang Scissor Gang. Like, they are one of the featured acts right now, at least on Collision. And you have a free spot. Why don't you put them on? I agree, some messy spots here, but pretty good reactions though overall for Billy Gunn and Jay White's hot tags. And we'll see if Willie Mack gets that third spot.
The purpose of this was Jay White afterwards cutting a promo and just putting over Greensboro as one of his favorite cities, and like runs down the card. He was like playing RJ City here, but then noted that he is the leader of the Bang Bang Scissor Gang, and on March 13th, maybe he'll be handling some big business of his own, as DTs for not this week, but the following week for the Boston show.
So I feel like this would have been a good opportunity for him to actually call out the opponent, right? I mean, maybe they want to save it for Dynamite. That's fine. But who do you think it is?
I think it's going to be Bart Gunn.
Okay. Uncle Bart?
Yeah.
All right. Well, sure. Listen, Sting's out. Time for
Bart's
the Bart Gunn retirement. Yeah.
That's it. Come on. Lexi Nair is with the best friends in Orange Cassidy, and Doc Sampson, the most unique doctor in professional wrestling, who explains that Orange Cassidy has to tape up his ribs and his back or else he isn't cleared.
Is this grounds for like malpractice? You know, like, is this
at the least? This would be like, okay, Wei, you've got a broken leg. If you want to enter this jiu-jitsu tournament, you've got to wear a cast or else you're not cleared with your broken leg. Thank you, Doc.
Yeah. Can I tape up my broken leg? Is that good enough?
Yes. This is all. This is also the man that would have been. Hey, what are your thoughts about glass in general?
Up for debate, I suppose. Yeah. Is it real or is it not? Obviously, you know, rib injury. Perfect setup for, of course, the opponent.
It was the whole story of the match, which is to come. But then the best friends note that they have Orange Cassidy's back, but Cassidy wants them to stay in the back tonight because he's tired of his friends getting hurt. And Chuck Taylor steps up. I'll make sure we stay in the back, which would beg the question if this is going to fuel the Trent turn. Okay. Our biggest motivator when it comes to a man being upset in pro wrestling, making me travel when I don't need to. And Trent came all the way here to Greensboro to be in Orange Cassidy's corner. And he was told, go check out the catering. I hear it's pretty nice tonight for Sting's retirement.
Well, I'm sure he enjoyed the show. That it's worth it just being there.
Do you know what was taking place at the Greensboro Coliseum on Saturday night, according to Braden doing some research?
Downstate in concert.
Even better, in concert, Donald Trump.
Oh, okay.
And I don't want to give any wrestling websites an easy headline, but Sting outdrew Donald Trump by like 10,000 people, and I'm pretty sure the Trump rally wasn't charging admission. So that was a big draw.
Yeah, what does that say?
We then go to this amazing vignette on Pac, the forgotten bastard, and he's asking, where have I been? None of your pissing business where I've been. Who said life's not hard? Everyone has a struggle and knows the burden of shame. You'll never get rid of me, Tony Khan. I'm like a little cockroach, and I will be back soon and drag this company into a new age. Doesn't it feel good to be alive? All this while he's laughing maniacally. I would be happy if this guy had visa issues to just send these in every other week. I would listen to this guy every other week, just talking about anything. Go through the newspaper and pick out a headline and talk about it. This was an amazing vignette. And I mean, one of the themes of this year is going to be just how loaded this roster is. And when you have a Pac that we're not even thinking about, and you throw him into the mix on top of things, it's just it unbelievable depth level.
Well, it means there's a chance he might continue to be a forgotten bastard after a few months. That's what it means. I mean, it's hard to get airtime in AEW these days. I mean, this bodes well the fact that he had, you know, a video all to himself. We've had a lot of this, you know, high quality video production from Pac before, and I'm still waiting for like his his run. You know what I mean? Like, he's had a great trios run with the Death Triangle. This seems to hint towards maybe a singles run, but I feel like we've yet to really see him as a featured player in the main event level. Is this going to be it, or are these like is his distance from I guess regular sort of
US?
full-time? Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, like from regular full-time sort of activity with AEW going to always kind of put him into this space.
Well, now he's got a flight partner. Okay, him and Will can grab airline tickets together, and they're travel partners now.
Does that add incentive for him to come over more often, you think?
It depends.
I don't Depends know. How well they get along on the plane, right?
I mean, that small talk could run dry quickly. Julia Hart and Skye Blue against Willow Nightingale and Kris Statlander. That was added on Friday. The crowd is singing along with Julia Hart's theme, and Stokely Hathaway is on commentary. So they're double teaming Willow for a long period of time. And then Kris gets the tag and delivers she ends up sweeping Skye Blue's leg, which inadvertently leads her to flatline her own partner. Really frustrating whenever that happens, when you're holding somebody and then you accidentally give them a flatliner. So there's a chaos theory onto Blue, and then Hart's tagged in, sliding D from behind. And then we have Willow go for the Babe with the power bomb that is countered by Hart into a power bomb, but Skye Blue is the legal woman. So Hart then lands the moonsault press. Willow's in to make the save. And then after Willow avoids the code blue, nails her with a pounce, and she goes flying and hits the Babe with the power bomb to pin Blue in 13 minutes and 32 seconds. I thought this one, you could have shaved off some of the time. I did feel this one overstayed its welcome at a point, but more so the middle portion. But the end, they certainly got the people with the pounce spot, and then the Babe with the power bomb for the babyface victory.
I thought there were some blemishes in this one too, primarily with sequences involving Willow and Julia Hart. Now, it's worth noting that this is Julia Hart's first match since coming back from an undisclosed injury in mid-January, so we don't really know the extent of what that damage was. Nor
it was the rough-looking power slam that Willow went to deliver, and they were just off with the timing of it.
Yeah, but you give somebody leeway when they're just kind of coming back from injury. I would say overall I enjoyed the match just due to the chemistry of the four characters here. They're four of the strongest AEW originals in your mid card right now in their women's division, and they are actually one of the few women that actually have a long running storyline. So that engaged me enough. I thought Statlander was looking awesome. I think her confidence and charisma have it's just come a huge way since her pre-injury run, and I thought her offense looked very heavy, very convincing. And now that Julia Hart is back, I'm assuming we are going to arrive at some sort of resolution towards this Stokely Hathaway, Kris Statlander Willow thing.
Maybe this will eventually morph into the Bleacher Report championship.
So the matches get interrupted and you don't see them.
There's constant interference, and sometimes the match just ends prematurely without a finish.
And then all of a sudden it turns into a Fight TV championship match.
Well, Fight TV comes in to restart the match.
Right.
On to the pay-per-view proper, and kicking things off is the TNT Championship match with Christian Cage with the Patriarchy defending against Daniel Garcia. And we saw many performers with Sting tributes, beginning with Daniel Garcia with this jacket with scorpions all over it. I don't know how much use you're going to get out of this jacket beyond one night, but maybe Daniel Garcia, walking around downtown Buffalo, this will be, a Friday night look.
I don't know what the kids are wearing these days. I mean, this would probably fit in anywhere. Sure.
So a lot of this focused on Christian having his ankle damaged and selling it. Early on, he pretends to have the ankle injury and goads in Garcia and lands the cheap shot. But then Garcia attacks the ankle and even applies the ankle lock, which they tie into him learning from Jake Hager, the art of the ankle lock. So Cage, throughout the rest of the match, he would collapse at different points. He would do that spot where he was going to slingshot himself over the top to the floor, but gives up on it, knowing that the ankle hurt. So it was a constant focus here. And Cage is in control for quite a bit here. And he's talking trash to Garcia when Nick Wayne runs at Garcia and gets back body dropped into the timekeeper's area. And he's fighting back, puts Cage's head or his turtleneck over top of his head and is firing off strikes at him. And then Garcia gets catapulted into the buckle, and Killswitch chokeslams Garcia behind referee Aubrey Edwards' back, leading to a frog splash, and Garcia kicks out with the near fall. Killswitch is furious that this did not end the match. So Matt Menard shows up attacking Killswitch. Shayna Wayne goes to slap Menard, but he stops her and then fights with Killswitch up the ramp and away. That sets up a spear by Cage, but as he's going for the spear, the ankle gives out. Garcia hits a pile driver. And when Cage kicks out, it is the last possible second. And the whole crowd thought it was over. They're chanting, that was 3. It was just a really good kick out spot with Christian. And then Garcia goes for the jackknife cover. Cage grabs the rope, and out of nowhere comes Nick Wayne with a cutter through the ropes. And that leads to the kill switch, and Cage retains in 16 minutes and 50 seconds.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was a very well worked match overall. You know, it was Garcia more so working a conservative, more of an old school style based around psychology and crowd work, which Christian has really kind of like owned as something that makes him unique among this very young and very athletic AEW roster. But what Christian does incredibly well is these very well told stories, well paced matches that really maximize all the activity that somebody does. And it made Garcia look really good, giving him 2 very big near falls here. I didn't really love a lot of the patriarchy run-ins. I didn't think that they were like as well executed. For one thing, I don't really feel like a Daddy Magic should be enough to push back and send out of the arena somebody who's supposed to be an enforcer and a giant like a kill switch. That was not that great. I didn't think the Wayne's World looked that great on the apron either, but it did not detract from the quality of the match overall. And I would say overall they got a lot more out of this like throwaway match, because we're all waiting for Christian versus Copeland. They got a lot more out of this than I was expecting, and I think that speaks to how much the crowd wants to see more of Daniel Garcia.
Yeah, I like the match as well. I mean, I didn't even have too much of a problem with the way they executed the finish as I would for a later match. But overall, I thought that it was a crowd that was very heated for the big near fall spots, getting behind Garcia. Nothing with Adam Copeland in the match, and kind of didn't make sense if this was what your end result was going to be. I think that there was at least some doubt if do Christian and Copeland need this title to be feuding over if you could get it onto a Garcia. But obviously they like this belt with Christian, and for the follow-up match with Adam Copeland that is probably coming up soon.
I would argue yes. I mean that's Copeland's whole thing, right? He wants to win gold, and specifically he wants to take Christian's gold. You know, they already feuded over it, and Christian stole it from him, right? So seems to be part of the story, and we'll see if we get that match for Toronto.
So Nick Wayne got involved in the finish of that match, but you don't have to let your location interfere with your viewing options. Tell us more, Way.
It is 2024, and tracking technology from advertisers, ISPs, and hackers is getting more sophisticated than many of us can understand. Something you can do to give yourself a bit more peace of mind this year is to protect your browsing by investing in a trusted VPN like NordVPN. Voted Best VPN for Privacy of 2023 by Security.org, Nord is one of the most established and reputable VPN providers in the field. NordVPN is also something I use every day to access geo-blocked online streaming services like AEW+. By far the best way of watching AEW programming commercial-free with on-demand access to AEW's entire TV archive. But perhaps the most value I've gained from using Nord has been the ability to unlock cheaper priced online content from other parts of the world. And from now until March 20th, when you sign up at nordvpn.com/postwrestling, receive 4 bonus months at discount pricing on all 2-year plans. Plus, users in the US, Canada, UK, and Australia receive an Uber Eats voucher valued from $10 to $30 with their standard, plus, complete, or ultimate plan. Again, that's nordvpn.com/postwrestling. Sign up for as low as $2.91 a month and enjoy some free Uber Eats, along with all the benefits of a premium VPN like Nord's. I really should have reshot that one specifically for tonight, because I think a lot of people could have used maybe access to fight.
Pissed off with your US online provider? We've got the answer for you. Lexi Nair was in the back. These were really cool. They had Lexi setting the stage with Danielson like shadow boxing and warming up in the back, and then Renee with Kingston getting ready. Very just different just a different type of presentation here, very much in the style that you'll see like a Megan O'Leary do on a UFC broadcast.
Yes, really cool. It's, not only does it more call towards the sort of sports like presentation that I think these two specifically seem to usher in, stemming from the what is it, Continental Classic. It's a good place to remind you what the main storyline points are, heading into the match. We know that Eddie Kingston is trying to get revenge for his mentor, Jun Akiyama. And we know that Bryan Danielson is out to make Eddie Kingston tap out. These are the Cole's notes of everything boiled down to 2 sentences, and you get it from the 2 hosts right here.
So they are out immediately. There are back and forth chants, and these would continue throughout the match of let's go Eddie, let's go Bryan. And Danielson is early on going after the hand of Eddie Kingston, and he would isolate the arm, stomping on the elbow of Danielson, of Kingston. And this would play into so much of his offense, and then setting up the label lock as he's extending the injured right arm. And this would also impact Eddie Kingston when he would go for his offense, such as the Hurricane with the injured right hand as well. And Kingston eventually lands the Hurricane, and he's selling the hand that he's, utilizing to try and finish off Danielson, and then manages a Northern Lights bomb for a 2 count. And Danielson comes out of the corner, walks into another Hurricane, but Kingston is too hurt to knock him down. So Danielson kicks out the hand and lands a Busaiku for the first big near fall of the match, and then applies the triangle, instantly calling back to the Dynamite 6-man on Wednesday, while bending the injured hand. And Kingston keeps his hand up, gets to the rope. The crowd is chanting more. And then they get into this procession of suplexes with both men down at the end of it and the crowd getting to their feet. Kingston lands some Kawada kicks. Danielson slaps him viciously. And then Kingston fights back, but with his left hand, the good one. The Busaiku gets stopped with a left arm lariat and powerbomb to pin Danielson in 19 minutes and 45 seconds. Afterward, Kingston is looking at Danielson, and he goes to leave, doesn't think Danielson's going to live up to his end of the bargain, but Danielson tells him to wait, puts out his hand, then pulls it back, but then he's just kidding. He shakes Eddie Kingston's hand, raises his arm, and leads a chant of Eddie because his respect has finally been gained. And I love this match. I thought it was outstanding. The crowd was into this for the whole thing. I love the stuff with the hand and Kingston tailoring his offense around the hand as well. Very simple finish at the end, and just utilizing like the left side of his body for the end here against Danielson. And at the end of it, you got this whole kind of progression of Eddie Kingston that, he had the respect of Jon Moxley. He begrudgingly got it from Claudio when he beat him for the ROH title at Arthur Ashe, and now you've got Danielson's respect as well.
So all that's left is Wheeler Yuta, the real end game here.
I mean, Wembley Stadium is Wembley Stadium for a reason, right? Okay.
This was an excellent pro wrestling match. I thought in particular Eddie's selling was outstanding in this match. You can really follow the entire progression of the match through the state of his right arm as it got progressively worse and worse. He has this great wince that's not too over the top, but enough to make you like empathize with the pain that he's going through. There are so many great details, like Eddie just even wincing as he's pulling his straps down over his arm in order to just kind of like tell Bryan, hey, kick me in the arm as hard as you can. I'm going to show you I can take it. All in the name of, proving that he's not a bum. I guess not being a bum means, you can take a lot of pain. So this was
universal signal. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, I think, tremendous storytelling by the end of it, in over the course of however many months this has spanned, but this feels like a very satisfying, conclusive resolution to this constant teasing of Eddie Kingston's self-confidence from Bryan Danielson. So it felt real. Another highlight, I would say, in the incredible sort of final full-time run of Bryan Danielson's career. I mean, look at the body of work this man has produced over the past, I don't know, 6-8 months. Yeah, even the last month.
So yeah, this was a tremendous match. I thought this pay-per-view was off to a very good start with these 2 matches. Mm-hmm. And we go to, and another note is like, man, we always talk about the WWE shows and the pacing. And like last weekend's show, there was not a prayer. I was waking up at 5 a.m. to start a WWE show, knowing that I could wake up 2 hours later and I'll probably be caught up. This show, they barely let you even like go to the bathroom in between these matches. It was boom, 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 because they had 9 matches on this pay-per-view. They were not going to shortchange anyone. And like we had a lot of long matches, and there was no dead time on the show at all. It was match, maybe like some spots in between, and boom, entrance again, like no wasted time.
Yeah. And I'm not necessarily going to say that that's always a good thing. You know, I mean, you can definitely argue that having too much dead time is a bad thing, but I often think having these sort of peaks and valleys might actually create a more sort of, I don't know, satisfying, maybe viewing experience rather than having boom, 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 high, 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 high. But you know, we know the pace of these Tony Khan shows. They are like kind of like bang for your buck. And I'm not speaking about the main event. You know, I'm just speaking about like he's going to cram as much stuff in there as possible, belt to belt in ring action, so you know what you're going to get. And if you're anybody who takes notes for this, you're hopefully prepared for that too.
You got to be ready. You got to do a workout like pretty much a month in advance. The All-Star 8-man scramble: Chris Jericho, Wardlow, Powerhouse Hobbs, Hook, Brian Cage, Magnus, and Dante Martin, and Lance Archer. Taz is on commentary for this one, and Jake Roberts is out with Lance Archer. Brian Cage out with a Sting face paint as well. And we start things off with the big guys getting rid of the small guys. So we have Wardlow, Hobbs, Cage, and Archer in the ring, and they just started like taking turns posing and allowing the crowd to chant meat. So every time they made contact, the crowd yelled meat. Then the smaller guys, relatively,
the vegetables
came out to eliminate the meat. And then they tried to do like Jericho was posing. This was not getting over too well.
I don't know what the hell they were trying here. Now, for first of all, it's like, I understand like the meat thing was opening. This was great. I mean, they had promised meat madness here, and this felt like a great way to at least deliver a partial meat match.
Tony Khan did explain there wasn't enough protein, and thus meat madness is on the shelf until later.
I mean, these 4 I thought was plenty. You know, I mean, you know, to satisfy I would say most meat lovers. But I don't understand like doing that first and getting the crowd so hyped, and then having the 4 smaller guys in there to replicate similar spots. Because
I think they were really hoping for a crowd that was going to find this hilarious and just keep running the joke and chant meat for them too, and it fell flat.
Yeah, I think that's too much of the crowd to expect of the crowd. Because like, what would the crowd have chanted, and why would they have chanted meat? And beyond that, it was not well executed. It felt like Dante Martin, for whatever reason, was really lost, and overall it just didn't really come together, at least that portion.
This had its issues in the first half. It turned into like a actual match afterwards where we kind of played to everyone's strengths. This included a blackout to Magnus, which is stopped by Jericho, and then the double vertical to Archer, leading to Magnus and Jericho hitting stereo lion salts onto Lance Archer. Wardlow's in with a series of Germans and then goes to on a power bomb to Brian Cage, but Hook leaps onto the back of Wardlow with Red Rum, and with Red Rum applied, Jericho applies the walls while Hook's got Red Rum applied to Wardlow, and then Cage breaks them all up. We had some interaction with Hook and Jericho, with Jericho selling for Hook, taking the Northern Lights. Hobbs then runs at Jericho on the floor, and we see like this just crop of dust come up, and it's the fog machine water is what was explained. And apparently this reeked because like 2 matches later, Taz was still complaining about the smell of this water.
I believe it was the actual machine that he used to attack him.
Well, I'm going by what Taz told me. Okay, so whatever he used here. So it created the smoke effect, and poof went Hobbs, because we never saw him again. Wardlow powerbombs Brian Cage. Dante then rolls up Wardlow for a 2 count, but then Wardlow gets rid of Hook. Last ride delivered to Dante, and Wardlow wins in 16 minutes and 22 seconds, and therefore he will get an AEW title shot.
I thought it ended up being a really fun, like, how many 8-man scramble match here, and yes. I thought they delivered again, like enough of the meat to leave you satisfied. I thought all the meat dudes did really well here. You know, it was all set up for Wardlow, of course, but I'm always impressed by like Archer, Cage, and Hobbs, and I think actually I like all three even more than Wardlow, and all of them did really well here. Jericho seemed to introduce a lot of really great ideas and creativity into the match. Although
Jericho's always got some like unique idea, like the double lion salt spot.
Mhm.
I thought was really cool. He did quite a bit here for Hook, like took all of his suplexes and stuff like that, and and added star power to this match. Like I would say, beyond him, it was really him, Hobbs, and Wardlow that people's were looking at. But it gave you another option of a person to win this.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Dante Martin might have had like one of the most off nights I've ever seen of him in his AEW run so far. Like,
Oh man, the dive to the floor, man.
yeah,
He went for
several.
the springboard and he caught his foot on the top rope. He's lucky he was okay from it and just rolled over, because that could have been much worse at the speed he was going at.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people get tripped up all the time, but rarely do you see Dante Martin get tripped up like this, you know? And it wasn't just one, it was like three of them. Three of them. And perhaps it was one of those things where like the first one kind of affects your confidence and you're just overthinking the rest. Who knows, right? But everybody has off nights. It's just rare to see Dante Martin have these. And
I was
it's
looking forward to Dante in this match in particular, because you have like these giant bases that he doesn't always get to work with, that I thought you could come up with some really cool stuff with Dante here as your flyer.
Mhm.
And Magnus too, for that matter.
We've seen enough of Dante Martin to know that this is no indication of his usual output. So I'm sure he'd be hard on himself, but I like even in the rest of this match, I thought he appeared perfectly fine.
Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong was next for the AEW International Championship, and Roderick Strong comes out in a mask and a record for regrowing a mustache, because on Wednesday they taped Collision. So last night he had no mustache on the tape show. Tonight, back.
Interesting. Wow.
Pretty impressive.
Wow.
Cassidy's ribs are all taped up. That means he's cleared. And Strong goes after the ribs, the big target, and drops him on the barricade. This whole match was about destroying the ribs of Orange Cassidy. And Taz notes that when your ribs are hurt, it affects your breathing. And a lesson for everyone out there, he says, if you can't breathe, you can't fight. And that is accurate. You cannot fight if you can't breathe.
I don't know if you can do many things.
Strong is kicking at him with like the limp kicks, and then Cassidy just collapses after avoiding yet another chop that Strong was delivering. Hits him with this beautiful looking gut buster right over his knee. Then the end of Heartache gets countered with the stun dog, and Strong immediately goes back to the ribs. This sets up the stronghold. Everything is affecting the ribs, and Cassidy finally kicks him off and makes his comeback, including a Panama Sunrise that Strong was in position for. Cassidy then eats a knee, catches him with the orange punch, tries to lift him for the beach break, but he collapses. And this was a tremendous spot for the story of this match, because he collapses with the ribs giving out and then has to hold him up to finally hit the beach break, but his foot gets on the rope. So Cassidy is getting out of the corner and out of nowhere is blasted with another knee, and he hits the end of Heartache, and Roderick Strong wins in 12 minutes and 44 seconds. It really came out of nowhere, but I kind of like the simplicity of this finish and the fact that we could have a heel win without needing to do a bunch of run-ins from Taven and Bennett. We have to protect a guy. It was like he was hurt, and the whole match was built around that. And I like the fact that this AEW, they typically will lean a lot on interference when a babyface is losing, and I like that they got away from that from this one.
I really like the finish, and I had no problems with it whatsoever, because I felt it was really earned here. I mean, no, like you didn't even get a kick out, you didn't even get a false finish, and you're talking about Orange Cassidy here, who last time he had a similar type of like title changing match, they kind of gave him everything in the main event. But I don't think that was necessary here, because for one thing, we already saw that orange story, but for another, they did such a great job of having Roderick Strong destroy this man's back, right? Like I thought again, Cassidy's selling was so good here. He made Strong's usual offense look amazing. Every move that Cassidy took to his back felt like a gunshot. And that's due to, I think, the great storytelling that they established, thanks to Doc Samson and his very lax medical practices, and great selling from Orange Cassidy. And of course, it's also due to Roderick Strong's like I don't know, 20 plus years of honing this like back targeting move set of his that's just outstanding. Because of the whole best friends sort of like thing that they teased earlier, I thought for sure we were going to get interference, but it was as clean as it could be, and it seemed like the intent is to make Roderick strong and by extension the Undisputed Kingdom feel like a bit more of a legitimate threat, and I think you needed a strong win here, no pun intended.
So you had the title win. Taven and Bennett are in, hoisting up Roderick Strong, when all of a sudden Kyle O'Reilly appears in the ring, and he's looking all menacing. So you don't know what his allegiance is or is not. But then he just breaks into this big smile, hugs Roderick, and they present him with an Undisputed Kingdom shirt. He hands the shirt back, and then he leans in and whispers into Roderick's ear, "You're not here. You're not going to headline WrestleMania. I am." And he walks off, and it leaves Undisputed Kingdom confused. Kyle O'Reilly has been out since June of 2022. So this has been a very long, he's been out for neck fusion surgery.
Wow. Yeah. And some tears in his eyes. It looked like, as he was walking up the ramp. And I mean, that could be due to, I think, acting, but I think more likely there's probably some very real emotion, just simply for being able to announce that he's back, coming off of an injury as severe as that, right? So I'm sure he felt all sorts of emotions just kind of being out here. There, I think we all expected Kyle O'Reilly to join with this group, but the fact that they're kind of delaying it and telling a longer story, maybe even keeping Kyle O'Reilly as a babyface to oppose the Undisputed Kingdom, makes this a bit more interesting and certainly puts Kyle O'Reilly in a more higher, ranking spot than just another member of this group.
Yeah, I mean, this was a nice surprise on the pay-per-view, and this is a guy that's kept an exceptionally low profile for these nearly 2 years that he's been out, like not the most public figure either. So I'm sure that there is a lot of story that he can share about his time away and weaving it into this story, which I would say this is the most interest you have in this group, period, since it's been formed. Now that you have, a pretty solid champion in Roderick Strong, you're still waiting on Adam Cole, but now you have this element of the story on top of it. There's at least some interest that I can't say there was going into this paper.
I feel Kyle works a bit better, at least to me, as a babyface anyway. And we've seen these guys team up so much. Maybe it's finally time to tell that story of them being apart.
John Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli against FTR, or should we say the Road Warriors against the Midnight Express. It was Starrcade 86 here, as Claudio and John Moxley came out with the Road Warriors spiked shoulder pads into the Greensboro Coliseum. And
every little child's dress up, I'm sure, who might have been a wrestling fan at that time.
Yeah, this is quite the look. Got a big reaction.
I mean, if you're gonna wear Road Warriors shoulder pads, it would be in the Greensboro Coliseum.
Yeah, it certainly could. Shivani compares John Moxley to Dean Martin for how cool he is and just doesn't give a damn. And Taz reminds him, yeah, well, Dean Martin was always drunk. And Tony Schiavone's like, yeah, that's true. And Taz then says, I can still smell that fog machine. And this is bothering him. So they beat on Cash Wheeler for an inordinate amount of time, including getting run into the crowd where Moxley attacks him. And then Dax is brought in and he is sent into the post. And this was a hell of a post shot because he comes up and the man is about to need a blood transfusion. He is just a faucet here. And so they continue here. There's an assisted air raid crash by the BCC onto Dax. A lot of blood is coming out of this man's forehead. And they go for the spike pile driver, but instead, Cash hits the tope suicida onto Claudio. Mox then kicks out. And Moxley then lifts Dax as Claudio scales to the top and they hit a European uppercut doomsday device. This got an insane reaction.
Awesome.
Appropriately so. The shatter machine gets blocked by Claudio, and then it's Moxley with the cutter, giant swing to Dax, and then Dax kicks out after he's tossed. They close in on Moxley, biting Dax's wound. He's got his teeth right on the cut. Thankfully, Nigel wasn't on commentary. I don't know. He might have had the same reaction when Mariah May blew him a kiss on Collision.
Nigel's had to call some very bloody matches already in this run.
Is what you're signing up for in this company. So the Shatter Machine is hit to Moxley, but Claudio yanks Dax to the floor, breaking it up. Then we get Cash going for this insane tope suicida and is nailed in midair with a European uppercut by Claudio, followed by the neutralizer. Dax hits a pile driver to Claudio on the floor. Dax returns to the ring, and the sequence with Moxley ends with a paradigm shift, but counters with a backslide for a 2 count. Moxley locks in a choke. Claudio locks in a choke on Cash. And then Dax basically goes out as Paul Turner lifts the arm. It's limp, and the match ends at 21 minutes and 47 seconds. They did not shake hands, but they all locked eyes, and we are to believe that that means they respect each other.
Is that what that means?
That's when you stare at someone long enough. That's what it means.
Interesting. Okay.
Another great match on a show full of them so far.
Marvelous match from beginning to end. I actually thought this match was, for what they set out to do, completely perfect. They had
for
a lot
all
of
this about the 20-minute time limit. They went 21:47. That's all they needed. They just needed another 2 minutes.
One extra minute.
That would determine the winner.
Yeah. I thought they had a lot of very ambitious, like fast-paced sequences here that required like picture-perfect timing and execution, and they did.
Was anyone better than Claudio in this match? Dude, he was at another level, dude.
He was a standout. Yeah, I agree. This might be my favorite pairing in the BCC here. You know, their pace is great, their creativity and the technical execution of everything they were doing is just top level. But Claudio, I thought, like, even stood above everybody else. Just incredible timing with those European uppercuts, and I'm very interested to see a Claudio and Moxley led tag team division. You know, it opens up a lot of really legitimately like brutal matches, perhaps.
Well, you would think coming out of tonight, we're going to get a Toni tournament
for tag team wrestling. You're right. Absolutely. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Toni they should be in it.
Yeah.
Maybe even the winners.
You know, the finish here, we should also mention FTR losing makes sense, maybe just even beyond the fact that they've already had this run, but because of Cash's upcoming trial, I have to think might have figured at least partially into maybe some of these plans. But I mean, I feel like
that's in May. It's not as though it's.
You would think whoever's winning these championships would be holding them past May.
Oh, you're talking about these vacant titles.
Yeah, I'm saying whoever you're setting up to be the next champions, which I'm assuming BCC are.
Timeless Toni Storm and Deonna Purrazzo for the women's title is up next. And they have Mariah May come out dressed as the old version of Toni Storm. And my God, did she look so much similar. So
convincing.
I mean, with due respect to Sting's kids, I mean, this was the best costume or cosplay on the entire show. Look at this. Like that, you would not even question that this wasn't Toni Storm coming out. Like, I had to do a double take. It was pretty incredible.
They could have done twin magic, I'm sure. She could have wrestled the first 10 minutes of this match, and I don't think we would have known.
So very, very unique entrance here. And then we go to the black and white, and out comes Toni. So they square off, and it's Storm in control early on. And man, the crowd was chanting for, it wasn't overwhelming or one-sided, but there was definitely a pro Toni Storm reaction from the crowd, and even booing at times when Deonna would fight back.
Well, I think Toni is the more popular star, you know, certainly. So, I mean, I don't think it's that much of a surprise.
One thing that I did feel overall, the build up to this was pretty effective. I think for the amount of focus they put on the Fujiwara armbar by Deonna, I think that they should have been really hammering that home on television, like not even just like the Venus de Milo, but that the Fujiwara is the setup for that, and tapping people out like week after week after week, just really hitting that home, because it did not get this big reaction that I think the match was structured to have.
I think they actually tried to do a whole lot in this story. You know, they tried to get over the both women's submission moves. They tried to get over their backstory, and to that end, I was kind of disappointed that the match didn't make more effective use of either of those things.
Both said, like, Deonna's was, I'm going to break both your arms, and Toni was, I'm going to break your ankle. Like, that was the attention. And it's not as though that was, you know, you had Deonna going for the Fujiwara, but it never felt that was like the focus of the match was, like, you know,
not breaking. Like it was for Kingston and Danielson.
Not the same. So Storm does get the ankle lock, the break a leg, but Deonna up kicks her out. and boots her into the arms of Luther. And then Deonna comes off the top with a dive onto both of them and goes for pretty much La Mystica into the Fujiwara, but doesn't get much of a reaction for it. Luther distracts Aubrey Edwards as Storm is tapping out. Mariah May gets onto the apron. Purrazzo knocks her off, turns around, and is hit with a pile driver. And Toni pins her in 12 minutes and 17 seconds. And afterward, Storm is showing attention to Mariah May and hands her the belt to carry to the back for her. So she was giving some attention to Mariah May. I felt that this ending to me was very lackluster, and I didn't think this match got to the level that the build-up commanded, and I was a bit disappointed with this one overall.
I like the match overall up until the finish, because I felt like there was another gear they needed to hit to make this a bit more satisfying, given I think the strength of the storytelling that they were doing before this. I mean, I thought the finish came a little too easy for Toni Storm, considering Deonna Purrazzo has felt like a really well-built baby face, and that's kind of rare, in the AEW women's tag team division, in the women's division period. Unlike Orange Cassidy, who only needed one finisher to be put away, I thought Purrazzo, they needed to better kind of build up the damage level to Purrazzo before that Storm Zero, and I don't think they achieved that. I also felt like there was a lot more storytelling material they could have got into, just given their history together. They have tattoos of each other, you had the great idea of the ankle lock leading to a boot coming off and her looking at, they couldn't, even if they didn't do that, I was expecting a little bit more just in the way of referencing the long history that these two had in the body of the match, somehow affecting the conclusion of the match. And this was about as straightforward of a wrestling match that might have assumed that you didn't need to follow any of that story to make it, I guess, I don't know, relevant.
There is the idea you could come back at it. Like you did do the Phantom Tap with Toni Storm. You did create that coming out of this, that you could lead towards a submission match of some sort, or something where Luther and Mariah May are banned from ringside, something like that. You did carve out the ability to come back with a rematch for Deonna, but
that's true.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of attention on this one as well, but we'll see what comes out of it. And, the women's division is only getting deeper when you are throwing in Mercedes and other questions like what the status of Britt Baker is going to be, the latest on Jamie Hayter. This is a division that is going to be just rife with people, and
they're all going to be competing for 1 to 2 matches per show.
Well, that's it. It's the division that you get lost in the shuffle in very, very quickly. So we will see what the follow-up is with Deonna Purrazzo. Will Ospreay, Konosuke Takeshita with Don Callis on commentary. The match has been promoted as the match of the decade. Applause as the bell rings. Huge reaction for Will Ospreay, and it gets off to a pretty hot start with a superplex by Takeshita as he's getting the heat while on offense. Ospreay then takes him to the floor and he lands on the shoulders of Takeshita and gets spun off. And we go to the floor from there. Senton by Takeshita as he comes off, landing on the knees. So Ospreay hits his leap of faith that misses, and Takeshita hits his big bridging German for a 2 count. Then another one before running into a Spanish fly. Crowd's going nuts here for pretty much anything that Ospreay is doing. Takeshita collapses after a big striking exchange, and Takeshita takes this rolling elbow and he's selling it like he's got nerve damage in his hands. He's his hands are contorted as the referee's, "Are you okay?" And Will's like, he's fine. He's fine. He comes over and just starts kicking away at him. And then Takeshita blasts Will with his own forearm, wobbling Will. Hits a second one. Ospreay won't go down. Comes back with Kawada kicks. A third forearm. Drops Ospreay, who responds with a Tiger Driver. Goes for the Os Cutter. And Takeshita catches the Os Cutter and turns it into a Blue Thunder Bomb for a near fall. Crowd gives this a standing ovation. They are all in on this match. Then we see the Os Cutter connect, sets up for the hidden blade, but it's stopped with this elbow strike, and Takeshita lands on top, and Ospreay just gets the shoulder up as both men are pretty much out on their backs here. Takeshita blocks a top rope Rana and goes for the brainbuster onto the turnbuckle. But Ospreay does not come down on the turnbuckle. He just crashes down and takes this pretty much on his hip, because they close in on his hip, and it's going to look horrible tomorrow. This close up of his hip just looked terrible.
This is a photo from the presser.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it looks awful. I mean, I hope for his sake some of that might be just like turnbuckle burn, but man, it looks, at least right now, it's probably going to be pretty brown and pink and all sorts of colors tomorrow.
Just an ugly color it was instantly as they showed him. Takeshita removes the knee pad, but gets caught with the stun dog and a poison rana. Stormbreaker is countered into a bastard driver, follows with the wheelbarrow German, and Ospreay fires at him with a hidden blade to the front. Takeshita kicks out at 1. Crowd is losing their mind. Ospreay hits a Styles Clash for a 2 count. Storm Driver 93, and then the hidden blade from behind to win this incredible match in 21 minutes and 58 seconds.
At this point, John, like, this pay-per-view was like
red hot.
Like it was, every match that I was seeing was topping the one from before, and it was like almost impossible to even pick a match of the night. Now, was this the match of the decade? Let's find out. Let's find out in 10 years time, but probably not. Okay. Was it even match of the night? Even that's for up for debate. But
it was,
bottom line, was it entertaining as hell? Yeah, it was incredible. I thought they delivered on some very, very lofty expectations. It was a lot more like striking base than I was expecting. It was a lot more brutal than I was expecting. You know, of course, that crazy brain buster for that huge wealth. And I thought this ultimately became like about as good of an official debut for Will Ospreay as you could have.
I don't think you could ask for much more. I think this will be a match of the year candidate for a lot of people. And more importantly than just having a tremendous match, it was like he was treated like a superstar on this show. Like, he feels though he is the guy coming into this company for 2024 to be promoted around. I thought it was a terrific arrival, had a tremendous match with about as great an opponent as you could ask for this type of a match, where it was pretty much the build was they're going to come out and have a kick-ass wrestling match. And that's what they did for 22 minutes. And
that's the power of having somebody like a Will Ospreay on your card. I mean, you have another Kenny Omega here. You have arguably somebody who's kind of taken over that title of best belt machine, that, you know, he's a guy that you certainly want to have story for, but he's also a guy that you could just put on any card and there's already going to be a guaranteed number of people that are going to be buying this show because he delivers quality every single time that he's out there.
So what if it turns out that to get his work visa for the US, that Matt Hardy secretly signed him to a contract and now owns his promotional rights? I mean, that is your indoctrination into AEW, is it not? Yeah. That Matt Hardy has to have you under his power.
Will
he scooped him from Don Callis.
That's I think I'd rather Will Ospreay join Private Party at this point.
Okay, all possibilities. Kyle Fletcher makes his return, coming out, and he stares at Will and then gives him a big hug. As it was funny, they announced that they're gonna have a match on Wednesday before the hug, and then they hug and embrace. It was just a little awkward.
Very clunky storytelling, but this is like Tony Khan, right? Like, you often get the match before you get the story. They'll make sense of it eventually.
Yeah, it was like they were teasing it like these two are at odds or something, but then Excalibur is explaining, oh, they live together, and then they hug after we've learned they're having the match. It was just like, okay, what is this relationship? So anyway, it's going to be a friendly on Wednesday between these two. I think Will is above wrestling for this ROH television title. This is not at stake.
I highly doubt that. Yeah.
So that's it.
This seems to, like, correct me if I'm wrong, is this not the like on-screen debut of the new Dynamite logo?
I think so. I think this is the first time they've shown the new logo. How do you like it? Very got like an LA Lakers vibe to it, kind of with the gold and purple. But
change is good. I like it.
Sure. Yeah. Samoa Joe, Hangman Page, and Swerve Strickland for the AEW Championship, with Jim Ross with Excalibur and Shivani for the final 2 matches. Prince Nana came out with a group of dancers, and we start things off pretty heated at the beginning for all 3. It's been I think this has been a very effective build for this 3-way. So Joe is just wrecking shop on these two at the beginning. So Page eventually stops a rolling flatliner, tries for the dead eye, and Joe stops him. He's pretty much just stopping them at every turn. Swerve got cut under his left eye early in this, and Page goes for a moonsault and rotates into a tombstone on Swerve, but then Joe makes the save. He hits a muscle buster to Hangman, and Swerve follows with the Swerve stomp, hits a house call to Joe, doesn't go for the cover. Instead, he stares at Hangman and hits him with a house call, getting the 2 count. So you saw the story progressing, that Swerve and Hangman, they were at different points of the match blinded by their rage for one another, that they were overlooking just winning the championship when there were opportunities that presented themselves. Swerve hit a 450 onto the back of Joe, and Swerve then lands the stomp to Joe, but Page pulls referee Paul Turner to the floor, and the crowd is booing this. And this was a hell of a pull, because Paul Turner was unconscious from being pulled out of this ring. And Page takes the belt, nails Swerve with it twice, and then goes down to the floor and yells at Swerve, "You will never have this. It's mine." And then he proceeds to hit 2 buckshot lariats onto Samoa Joe, but Paul Turner is still out. There's no referee. Bryce runs down and Joe kicks out. Then he goes for a 3rd buckshot, but Joe ducks, applying the coquina clutch, and Swerve breaks it up with this beautiful spiral tap off the top. And then Prince Nana hands the crown to Swerve. Swerve decides he does not want to use the crown and sends it away. And because of this distraction, he is caught in the coquina, turns into a roll-up, and then Page attacks Bryce Remsburg and throws him out of the ring. So he is total heel to this crowd. They are loudly booing him. And we get all of these big strikes by everyone. Swerve hits his own buckshot lariat onto Hangman, followed by the JML driver, and then Joe suplexes Swerve. Coquina is applied to Hangman as Paul Turner returns, and Page taps before Swerve can break up the submission at 19 minutes and 42 seconds. And they ask if Page tapped because he was done or because he wanted to deny the win for Swerve and keep the title from him. So that was the question coming out of this. But Joe retains, and he just poses with the belt in front of Swerve. I don't think there was really that wrong of a choice of where they went here, but I did feel this was probably the best outcome for where they're going with this story. And I did feel a title change would have been a big afterthought by the end of the show. That I don't think you want your championship ever to be where it's the second biggest thing on the show. Like, it should be the big moment in the of a show when you're doing a rare title switch that AEW does.
Right. There's that. And I think there's just simply the idea that, like, Joe needed a longer run, and Swerve and Page don't need the championship in order to continue their feud. I thought, like, I think building 3-way feuds, especially for like world title programs, is always really difficult. And in this one, maybe even in some ways more so, because you have Page and Swerve that are already so linked together, and Joe has kind of like found a bit of a I don't know, like, third wheel type of role here, where he's just constantly reminding, hey guys, like, I'm the champion, I'm here too. And I feel like they did about as good of a job as maybe you could expect for that sort of dynamic, even within the body of the match. Even like, not only did they have to build that sort of like 3-way rivalry, they had to do a double turn. I mean, the double turn has been in effect for quite a while, but they had to complete it here. And by the end of the match, I feel like they effectively did it. Every character kind of ended up in the position that they're supposed to be in. You have Page now, who is a full on heel. Swerve, who has chosen not to cheat, and therefore has kind of confirmed his babyface status. And Samoa Joe also feels like he's a babyface right now, doing a whole lot of his more fan-friendly moves at the beginning of the match to continue to establish himself as a crowd favorite ahead of this match with Wardlow. So they've had to like navigate a lot of really sort of tricky babyface heel dynamics, and I feel like by the end they kind of came out with a pretty satisfying result. Match I thought was technically good. Now, like, this coming after the quality of wrestling that we've seen prior, it was a very good match, but I can't help but feel like there was something maybe off with the pace during this match that was not as apparent in some of the other matches on this show. For me, it was a notch below Ospreay Takeshita, BCCFTR, Bryan Kingston, and Orange versus Roddy. Now, on any other show, a match this
pretty
good,
damn high bar on this show. Yes.
Huge. Yeah. On this show, this might only be the 5th best match, maybe even 6th, depending on who you're asking.
Yeah, I mean, I like the match. I don't disagree with you. I didn't think it was the match of the show, but I mean, this late in the show, like, the audience was red hot, in particular for Swerve. I thought Hangman was great in the match as well. Like, it's interesting to watch, like, him and Drew McIntyre do these similar characters, but in their own unique ways, and both are working, I think, very effectively in with both feeling they're rooted in being right, and yet the audience is not with them. They are with the person that they are at odds with. So Joe retains, and then they make the announcement, making it official, that AEW is coming back to pay-per-view April 21st in St. Louis at the Chaffetz Arena with AEW Dynasty. So at this point, it looks as though they are up to, I think this would make it like, 10 pay-per-views on the calendar. So they will come back with this.
Is that including ROH or no?
Without including ROH. ROH are a separate 3, but you'll have this in April, Double or Nothing in May, Forbidden Door presumably in June. They have nothing in July.
Just up it to 12. What's just stopping you? Just make it, call this a monthly thing at this point.
Toni said he felt his sweet spot was 9 to 10, and I guess that
what's the difference, honestly?
I mean, at this point, I think you have an audience that are, if you went to 12 a month, I don't think it would be a terrible move on their part. I think that it does put a lot of emphasis on building all of these cards. You're still asking people to spend quite a bit, but I don't think there would be this revolt if they went to 12 pay-per-views a year, but it seems like 10 is their max that they want to go with. Although I think most people include ROH in there as well. So if you're including that, they're above 12.
Right. Yeah. And does this continue to maybe like wither away the average buys per pay-per-view? We shall see. I mean, even that though is seems like it's a gamble that they're willing to take if it means an overall, increase in revenue for the company.
World's End, it looks like that's going to turn out to be very successful for them, and this one's certainly going to as well. And we'll see what they have planned. Now they have, it's not a crazy amount of time either between that next pay-per-view. Like we're talking 6 weeks or so until the next pay-per-view.
That's
7 weeks.
Wow.
It's also, that's the same weekend as the TNA's next pay-per-view, and I think that will hurt TNA having AEW show the next night.
It's also the same day we may potentially climb the CN Tower again.
Oh my goodness, you're right. That's that weekend as well.
Yeah.
What a crazy weekend we have coming up. Then time for the final match where they introduce some of the luminaries. First up, it is Ric Flair. Did you note the graphic?
No, what?
21-time champion now. So you can take your 16 times WWE and keep chugging away at it. We're going to recognize more of his title reigns, which this is far more accurate than the 16.
Like, and what's the controversy? I mean, without maybe spending too much time on it, like, what?
There's just been a bunch of his title changes that are not recognized in that 16 number.
Why does WWE not recognize them?
We're celebrating 40 years of WrestleMania, 39 years after. I can't tell
but what's
you.
Controversial about those particular 5 title changes?
You'd have to ask them why they acknowledge some and don't acknowledge others.
That's strange. Okay.
The guest timekeeper is Ricky Steamboat. And then in the audience, they showed Paul Walkerhausen and then Nikita Koloff, Magnum TA, and Scotty Riggs. If you have not seen the Scotty Riggs video with DDP, it's amazing. The one they released this week with him and Buff Bagwell. I mean, it's captivating. Like what he has done with some of these individuals. Like I won't, you should certainly watch it. Like Scotty Riggs was in a really bad place and literally his life was saved.
Wow.
It's a really fascinating video that they put out this week.
Somebody in the chat mentioned Denise Salcedo shot a video or posted something showing Luger and DDP in attendance as well.
Okay, so they were there. I'm surprised they didn't show them on the broadcast, but anyway. The final showtime is the themed entrance where Sting walks into an empty theater and it opens up the curtains and Sting watches all of these still shots of his career, minus things like, WCW, Jim Crockett Promotions, and WWE, which I guess did not feel to contribute.
You had some still photos. Okay.
Well, not WWE shots, I can promise you that. But we got, a pretty nice retrospective here of the footage was mainly reserved for New Japan, AEW, some shots of him with Jim Hellwig, the final Nitro with Ric Flair. They had a still shot of a bunch of Muda. And then the curtain closes and Sting looks into the camera. It's showtime for the last time. Let's do this. And out walks his sons, Surfer Sting and Wolfpack Sting.
Dude, this was amazing.
Dude,
this is amazing.
His son, the Surfer Sting version. I mean, this guy, I mean, looked
just like, yeah, perfect in this jacket. I mean, he's wearing the Great American Bash jacket.
like this was pretty, like when he walked out, I think there were fans that thought, oh my God, he dyed his hair blonde for his final night.
Oh, it's the same effect as the Mariah May entrance, you know?
Can't say I was doing a double take when Wolfpack Sting came out.
Maybe even a bit slimmer than Steve Borden at that
With
age.
due respect.
Yeah.
So they're coming out to Sting's AEW theme, and then we go into Seek and Destroy, and you've got like the crowd singing along. This entrance was amazing.
So great. So great. I mean, the video was outstanding. Just like had all the sort of production that I think you would expect, you know, for the magnitude of an event like this. They completely delivered it, including, I think, you know, callbacks to the past here.
This was one of the best pieces of production that AEW has put together, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So he is out. I mean, the place is going wild. Let me just say this. The Young Bucks were the perfect opponents for this last match. They were such awesome heels in this match. I just thought they were amazing. Like, this crowd hated them. I just thought they were tremendous in this match. So
you don't think FTR would have achieved the same, right? Because yeah, they'd be baby faces, and it'd be maybe a hard pivot to make them heels, perhaps.
I don't think you're having this type of match with FTR. It'd be a very different match. So they get into, it's a brawl right away. It's a tornado match. We're bringing out tables, and then Darby hits his coffin drop to the floor, which Jim Ross just notes, the little bastard's fearless. Just wait, Jim.
Yeah.
So Sting brings out a pane of glass, the operative word being pain. And they place this piece of glass on top of these chairs on the floor. Would they remember this pane of glass later on? I hope so. Just remember that glass is there on those chairs. And Sting misses Nick with the bat and hits the glass. It doesn't break, so he just takes the bat and just smashes it anyway, like he's, you know, just ransacking a convenience store.
Well, you paid for this expensive.
He's like, who's gonna break this? So just swings at it. Bucks are getting a ton of heat here. They're chanting F the Bucks, and they bring out the world's largest ladder into the ring. They powerbomb Darby onto this ladder, and then he fights back, hitting this code red. Meanwhile, Sting is taken out momentarily when he is on the stage, and they end up suplexing Sting off of the stage through a table. And that gives Sting his breather for about 3 minutes.
That was his break.
That was his break. Okay. His water break was taking a suplex off a stage through a table on the floor. So Darby is getting destroyed here in the ring when he makes his comeback. And as we mentioned, hit the code red, sets up the ladder above the chairs, and places Nick onto the pane of glass on the chairs. This is one of those, if you hit your target, it's an awful idea. He dives for this swanton. This man clearly, I'm sure this man has an attachment to his life, but I think he's one of those guys, if things go wrong, then at least it's going to be shot on pay-per-view. He dives and just crashes through this pane of glass. And it is at the point that this glass shatters that you realize pretty goddamn quickly, this is not gimmicked glass. And he turns over, and dude, it is like a million red ants are just coming out of his body, but it's blood. The punctures throughout his back are numerous. And this is what we are seeing. And this man, I thought they had like taken him to the back and he was going to make his big comeback. For like 8 minutes, he's gone. And they do this wide shot. He's in this same position for this whole 8 minutes, just laying here in this glass, bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. There are few things I've seen in wrestling that are genuinely shocking to me.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't be with this specific performer, but this was one of them. And this guy had a death wish of, how can I thank this man for being my partner, risking death for his final match? That's how I'm going to repay him. Way, you never have to do this to thank me, okay? Please.
You don't want this for Christmas, me falling through a glass off a ladder?
Oh.
Yeah.
You remember when there was a big thing about like Goldberg wanted to make it real glass that he would put his arm through, He insisted on real glass. They didn't want to gimmick it, and he ended up like slicing his arm up and missing
We
6
all
months of
remember
action.
that first real glass incident.
There's a lesson here about using real glass. Real glass is undefeated in pro wrestling.
Listen, I'll say real glass or not. I mean, I think the more severe damage was him falling off the ladder through like no padding whatsoever on these chairs and basically smatting onto the mat from that height. It's insane. Even for Darby Allin, this was one of the more upsetting and severe bumps that we've ever seen him take. But he was fine, finished the match. So I mean, it's just kind of Darby Allin doing Darby Allin things.
Fine.
Fine for Darby Allin.
He stood up.
He was talking on the microphone. I mean, I don't think he's being taken to a hospital, right? Like he's bottom line, like he needed a stunt that was going to top all the other ones that he had done in the past. And this, I'm not going to say maybe did that, but it came very, very close. This was his WrestleMania, certainly.
So Darby is momentarily taken away from the match. Sting returns because no one else was going to be making a comeback on the Bucks. And dude, Sting just went into his next gear. He's like, I've got 5 minutes left of my career, and I'm just going all out with these guys, with the Young Bucks. So he places Matt onto a table, and Sting climbs the big ladder. Matt stops him. Nick sets up another pane of glass in the corner, and Matt sends Sting through the table, but he just pops up and roars, as does the crowd. The Bucks take him. They hip toss Sting through the pane of glass in the corner, hit him with a low blow, and then there's a scorpion death drop onto Sting for a 2 count. Nick grabs the tag belt. Ricky Steamboat stops him, so Matt attacks Steamboat. Flair's crawling in to check on Sting. He's waving off the Bucks. At one point, Rick just tells Matt, fuck off. And they double super kick Ric Flair. Then they double super kick Ricky off the apron. There's a belt shot by Matt. Sting kicks out again. They do the Michael spot. We're not sorry. We hate you, with double super kicks. And Sting no-sells the super kicks, fires up, crowd goes wild, and he hits a scorpion death drop to Matt. They come back with the EVP trigger. Now the audience, they're like, that's it. But Sting kicks out. They shake his hand, hit him with another EVP trigger, and Sting, I'm not going to call this a kick out. This was more like a convulsion out. Okay. That's what he did to stop the cover, but his shoulder came off the mat and he just waves it on, eats a double super kick, and they go for the renamed TK driver when Darby comes back from the dead and shoves Nick off the top through a table. There's a death drop to Matt for the near fall, and then a coffin drop onto Matt, followed by the scorpion deathlock applied. Matt Jackson taps out in 21 minutes as Sting gets to go off as one of the AEW tag champions and gets the win at the Greensboro Coliseum.
Incredible. You know, there was maybe some talk about what finish they were going to go with for this match, whether or not Sting would lose, whether or not he would win the championship. I always maintained that the finish that I wanted to see was the one that provided the most emotional catharsis. You could have gone both ways depending on which story you wanted to tell. And for this story that they told tonight, this was the perfect finish, having Sting leave as champion. That final call to the crowd as he was about to turn over for that Scorpion Deathlock, I thought was like that emotional high, you know, that I think I was looking for in a match like this. The type of like moment where you finally are faced with, I think, the reality that this is a man about to clock out. This is a man who's about to, you know, put the end period of on an incredible career. And they hit it. I thought this match was great. Like all of matches during this like very unique AEW run, they delivered on the appeal of seeing basically a 60-something-year-old man who's on his second career, coming off of spinal stenosis, taking part in these crazy spot fests, jumping off of crazy shit. They gave you that and more, like in the form of 2 like falls through the ladder, 1 off a ramp, 1 fall through glass. They gave you a lot of nostalgia in the form of like, you know, his kids dressing up as him in that excellent video. And then you got a Darby Allin match with one of the craziest Darby Allin bumps that I've ever seen. So you got even Flair and Steamboat interactions. So they gave you like pretty much everything that I think you could be asking for, that you might have been expecting for a scenario like this.
I mean, it was like you checked off the box, I think, of everything you would have wanted out of this one. It's a small thing, but to me, maybe one, I'm not going to say the most impressive thing, but one of was Sting gets on the mic after this 21-minute match. Dude isn't blowing up. Dude isn't like even, it was incredible at how fresh he felt, like talking afterwards. Like
Yeah.
we've heard some guys after matches, and dude, they're like, can barely even get a word out after something like this. And he seemed like he was just fine after this thing. It was
He had
incredible.
more left, like, and I noticed this after the match with Starks and Big Bill. Like, he did not seem gassed at all, and the man was active throughout the entire match, doing crazy things in tornado style. So clearly, the man had gotten himself in incredible shape, and I'm sure ended up talking way past the. Maybe he's still talking now.
He thanked all of Greensboro ever since the first clash in '88 in this building. Thanks, Ric Flair. He wanted to give the fans a night they wouldn't forget. It's one I will never forget. Calls Darby the greatest partner he's ever had. The biggest understatement of the year. Darby is a risk taker, and says, so am I. Not like that, though. And Darby is like giving him the sign-off warning, like we're about to get cut off. The crowd's chanting, you still got it. And then the immortal last words, I've got to wait. I'm getting cues, as the show fades to black. And it fades to black on his career. And that was the end of what I thought was a phenomenal pay-per-view overall. And I don't know how Darby Allin will be alive after this match, but he is. But yeah, I think for a 21-minute match, I think you gave people everything they would have wanted. And even when we have seen Sting in some of the matches where you can see it's like it's probably been a lot for him to, he has stood out in, there's been some not as pretty performances, but you went out on a really, really strong one here. Nothing looked out of place. And thankfully he decided, you know what, Darby's going to be the one to dive off the ladder and not me.
He took a little dive, I suppose. He took a power bomb off a ladder. He fell off a stage as well. So,
Well, I was saying the big spot.
The big one. Darby. Yeah. No, this Sting run has really been unprecedented, I would say. For somebody, again, coming off of spinal stenosis, even not coming off of spinal stenosis in their 60s, to make a career off of doing this sort of thing, especially when you've had the career that you've already had, like Sting, is remarkable, and tells you a lot about maybe his mentality of simply wanting to entertain people, even at the risk of his own sort of health. It tells you a lot about how a Tony Khan views veterans and how he might treat veterans versus how we've seen veterans treated in the past in professional wrestling. So, man, can a run like this be topped, if you're somebody in a similar position?
I don't think we're going to see too many comparables of people at 64 doing this, along with the back issues that this guy had. And who knows, God knows what, like this guy had massive knee surgery in 1990 that slowed him down. I don't even know if I want to see people try and top this, but I will say, as much as you can look at, yes, I definitely agree in the sense of Tony Khan wanting to put this guy on that pedestal as our legendary figure and book him as such. This run, while the booking was a huge asset, this was a guy that saw this locker room and wanted to aspire to not stand out in a negative way. That this guy wanted to pick his spots. He was not going to be he could not do these things weekly. He couldn't even do these monthly. But when called upon, he could get ready, and 9 times out of 10, they worked. And he worked his ass off in doing stuff that I would be stunned that someone with this medical history would even attempt, but he did do it. And hopefully he's got a comfortable remainder of his life after this run, because it's one thing to watch these and marvel at them, but we're not the guy waking up the next day that has to deal with the repercussions of what he put physically into this run. But it is admirable for someone that could have done a fraction of it and he wouldn't have been criticized by that locker room. He would have still made the same amount of money, but he saw this locker room and did not want to embarrass himself. And he definitely did not.
What do you see for him after this?
I would see him as someone that if I was AEW, that I would want as sort of my ambassador, somebody that can be utilized, that can be, if you could incorporate just into different ways. Like there is still a lot of value in the Sting character, but I definitely do not want to see this guy do a comeback at any point. And I hope he doesn't want to do that either. That's as much as this feels definitive. Like there's always that side of, man, that last one went so well. I know I could do it again. And that's
You're
the
taking a
danger.
risk every single time. Yeah, and I'm not even talking about the dives. I'm talking about a regular bump, for a man his age. And he's tempted fate, I think, enough.
The fact that this guy, the idea of Wembley was thrown at him and he was like, no, this is it for me. It does tell me he knows this is the end result, but you always go with that caveat in wrestling. But I think largely the success of this show was people believing this truly is the end, that he's not going to be one of those guys that a year from now AEW needs something or he's got that itch to do this again.
I think he should take a long break, like let maybe give one final speech on television, perhaps like a formal goodbye that doesn't get cut off, and deliver that speech that I think we all want to hear from him. And then I think he should take a long break, let Darby climb Mount Everest, and then maybe eventually come back, ease his way in, perhaps. Hopefully, like I could see them trying him in a commentary role, at least as a guest spot. Maybe eventually something of a managerial role as well, where he speaks a little bit more. But if he chooses to just completely stay out of the spotlight, I mean, I think that's perfectly fine too. Again, how could you top a send-off like this?
All right, it's late. We're going to go to some phone calls and open it up to you with your feedback.
Yeah, we open up our phone lines for our patrons at postwrestlingcafe.com and video.postwrestling.com after every one of our live shows, Monday, Wednesdays, Friday nights, specifically for members. So if you're watching right now, thank you for being here. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you really like us, consider signing up for $6 a month at postwrestlingcafe.com, where you get a bunch of bonus shows and the ability to call in, including the host of Collision Course from yesterday, Bruce Lord, joining us here. Welcome, Bruce. Great job on Collision Course last night.
Oh, thanks very much for putting the bat signal up and calling me in there. As you heard yesterday, Kate and I were kind of a little bit lukewarm on that. In part, I think because just so much of the build to this show was so good and had been done so far in advance compared to other AEW pay-per-views. And really, it was just a question of, okay, were they going to stick the landing? And I think pretty much everybody assumed that Ospreay and Takeshita would deliver, and my God, it did. And then really, it was just, okay, how is the presentation of Sting going to go? And wow, that was just wonderful. I think that they found a way to balance both all of the kind of the nostalgia spots and the legacy type stuff with all of the absolutely insane just stunts and high spots and whatnot that we've come to expect from both men in that tag team. And look, you'll sometimes hear people sort of say, oh, AEW is just a work rate company. But when you hold up something like this, the send off for Sting, and then obviously under very different circumstances, the Brody Lee tribute episode, I think they really deserve credit for underlining these more sentimental and emotional moments in pro wrestling and giving people that sort of emotional closure and moment that they want to have. You said it, Way. It's unprecedented for somebody to have this sort of standoff that Sting got, because guys do not get to leave this industry. On that sort of note, last night Kate and I were sort of saying, Sting could win, he could lose, doesn't really matter. Let me tell you this, as somebody who has, like I said, very little nostalgia and sentimental attachment to old Sting or anything like that. Wasn't a fan when I was a little kid or anything like that. I was just pumping my fist with every single Sting kick out. It was absolutely the right decision to make. So yeah, just a wonderful, wonderful closing note there. And it's incredible to me that I'm thinking between that and the Takeshita and Ospreay match, so many other great moments, and matches on this card that I've already I'm almost at risk of forgetting something like the Kingston and Danielson match, which was fantastic. So yeah, just a fantastic pay-per-view back to front.
I want everybody who calls in to at least answer this question: what was your match of the night?
Me being me, I'm going to go with Ospreay Takeshita, but man, it's neck and neck. It is just those two. It is those two matches for very different reasons. Those two things were both perfect for two very different reasons as to why I watch pro wrestling. And the fact that we got to have both of those things on one show, two such very different representations of what pro wrestling can be, was just really, really, really great to see, I think, tonight. So I know there's a lot of people, so I'll peace out as right here.
Thank you
Thanks
so
a lot,
much,
Bruce.
Bruce. Again, great
Night,
job on
guys.
Collision Course, and continued great work on the New Japan Pro Wrestling reviews. He is our one of our hosts here at the Post Wrestling Cafe. So thank you for that. Let's go up next to, well, a lot of calls tonight. A lot of people want to get their thoughts in on Sting. So we encourage everybody to try to keep their thoughts concise and be mindful of all the other callers that are trying to get through. Let's go to Corey. Hey, welcome, Corey. What do you think of Revolution?
Hey, first off, thank you for the review, guys. This is fantastic. This is the first AEW pay-per-view I've watched live in a very, very long time. Obviously, there was a good reason for it, but I just want to get my one piece of major criticism out of the way. I know you guys were a little more high on the women's match than I was. I felt the energy in the room just leave when that match happened. And you could make the argument that, the audience was gassed. They needed some time to, store that energy. But when you have three very long matches following it with sustained energy and every other match before having a lot of energy, I think it's more of a greater indictment on the booking and perception of the women's division than anything else. And, looking at that match, I just can't help think of Mercedes Moné. She's going to be coming in supposedly. I just feel like the disparity in the way she is perceived and the way everyone else is just going to put a larger magnifying glass over the problems with that division.
Yeah, I mean, this is one, let's be fair, though. I think we were all fairly positive on the lead up to this. I mean, this to me was not a cold match. This was one that had a month plus of story behind it. So, I mean, I can't point fingers and say this was some poorly built up match, but I don't disagree with you. I would say of the main card itself, I would classify it as probably the weakest match of the match. And you're right. It was the audience did come down for the match. So you can make your different conclusions, but I'm not going to point to this one as one that I would be critical of the program that they had going into it. Cause I was pretty high on this one going in because of that fact.
Yeah, no, I'm specifically referring less to the strength of the program, but more so the audience's perception of the program. And maybe those are two of the same things, but I just can't help but look at the stark difference between the way people were absorbing that match and then just the absolute roar during the Ospreay and Takeshita match. But onto the positives. I mean, you wanted the match of the show. I've got a 1A and a 1B. Obviously, it's the Sting match. He's the fundamental building block of why I like pro wrestling. I went in a Blockbuster and I saw this guy that looked like the Crow on the cover of WCW versus NWO. I rented the game because the other game wasn't there. And here I am calling you guys at 1:38 in the morning, years later. He is the reason why I like this. I cannot think of a more hyped and well delivered American pro wrestler retirement match since probably the Flair retirement match at WrestleMania. And this blew that out of the water. This, in my opinion anyway, it was just incredible. The glass spot with Darby is maybe the gnarliest bump I have ever seen in a pro wrestling match since the heyday of GCW, as far as just a sheer brutal glass bump is concerned. And most of those glass bumps were in the wrestling ring. This was just on the floor. Insane. But my 1B, which I might be a dissenter from you guys, is the title match. I actually thought that it was a very intelligently crafted wrestling match. It was the tale of Samoa Joe being an interloper in his own title defense. It was a match that was simultaneously about Samoa Joe and not about Samoa Joe. It was about two guys who are locked in on each other, and Joe kind of being the big man in the room, yet for some reason these two guys cannot stop like killing each other. I just thought that everything was just perfect character development for both Swerve and Hangman. I thought Joe looked incredible. I think this might be the best match of his entire run. I loved it. It reinvigorated my love for Hangman Page, because I had been kind of sour on him for a while, and this just revelatory as far as I'm concerned. I'm really, really high on that match, and that's not even to knock everything else on this. I'm usually very critical of these long shows. This flew by for me. Incredible show. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you so much for your thoughts, Corey. Hey, we go up next, our friends at Poison Rana, who have made the trip.
Hi.
12 hours down to Greensboro.
Are you guys holding your thumb out on the highway to head back? What's the plan now?
Not quite yet.
Oh, those surge
we've
prices.
Got a last beer we've got to finish, so we've got to be quick.
Got to forget. Yeah, we had a ton of fun. We went to Davey's crazy idea to get in a car. We rented a car with a bunch of buddies, and we drove down 12 hours to get here in the middle of the morning. And then we went to the Greensboro Coliseum, which was just absolutely lit tonight. We had a blast. We got to go and see Sting retire. Takeshita Ospreay was insane. Like, oh my God, I can't wait to rewatch it. I hope it came across that way.
Was there any Trump supporting spillover from last night?
No, wow.
No,
we
but
wish we came a day
actually-
early, because the same venue had the Trump.
Well, I think
rally.
there might have been, because we showed up to our hotel booking and they were like, "Yeah, we can't accommodate you today." I was like, "What do you mean? We have a reservation." They're like, "Yeah, sorry, we can't fulfill it."
So shout out Hotwire, who helped us get a new hotel.
So
which is
I
lit.
think that might have been a bit of the Trump spillover. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a great time. Very.
What
hot.
was the live experience like in the building, especially
Incredible.
for
It was
or-
packed. Very
Yeah.
loud, really loud. Everyone was having a good time.
We really tried to get merch, and like the
Sold
lines
out
were
right away.
insane, and they were. That
Was
sold
there a
out.
lot of like Sting merch that they had made specific for the
Yeah.
Yeah,
retirement?
all sold out.
It was all Sting.
All sold out.
And yeah, lots of people in Sting face paint. Like, it was absolutely packed. Like, the video packages before the show, yeah, you could tell everyone was here for Sting, and the main event was just incredible, I thought.
And shout out Sting's kids, man. We thought those, like, there was 3 Stings. You know how, like, man, I was like, wait, why is there 3 Stings?
It's been a long day, and we were all really delirious. And when the first Sting came out, we were like, "Oh, Sting looks great!" And we're
Oh my
like,
God,
"Oh yeah,
we
wait,
got
okay, that's
NXT
his
UK
kid."
Tony Storm, and we got Surfer Sting. This is
We
very
need
good.
Sting's kid in NXT pronto right now. Send Sting's kids to,
Yeah.
you know, Wolfpack Sting was
Surfer
pretty good
Sting
too.
Jr.
Yeah, we need him
Watch
in NXT.
out for that guy.
It was great.
So I don't know if you guys know, but they cut off Sting's speech partway through because of the window. So for everybody who maybe didn't get to see it, and I know it's up at YouTube right now, but for people who didn't see it, what did he say towards the end?
He
Anything
said,
notable?
Greensboro, you were there from the beginning and you're here tonight. And he thanked everyone in his career. He thanked Rick. He thanked Tony Khan. Tony Khan then came out. We had the kids in the ring again. And Darby
The
said,
whole roster came out.
the whole
onto
roster
stage.
came out. Darby is like, I need to go to the hospital right now. Sorry, I got to go. So there was a puddle of blood ringside that, like, you could go swimming in possibly.
Yeah, Tony
like,
Khan walking to the ring.
and he
as they're calling
avoiding
him out, and then he's like, "Oh, okay."
Never
just
mind the
step
glass
around."
that went into, like, the first few rows as well. Hope everyone's okay.
They might
But, wow.
bottle that and sell it on
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
hopefully.
AEW shop site.
It was a sight to see. But yeah, Sting cut a very heartful promo at the end. Thanked everyone for following him through the years, and said goodnight. And then everyone gave him hugs at the end. Everyone on the ramp there, and then sent the crowd home happy. So it was
How many tears did you guys witness in that?
oh so many. I've never seen so many grown men in face paint since the last time I went to a Kiss concert. There were so many dudes wearing face, a lot of
Running the stuck guy.
yeah, just it was just a love fest for Sting. Oh, we're about to get hit
Jesus.
by a train now, guys. So we better get out of the way.
Okay,
Oh,
you guys go
okay.
enjoy your last beer. Safe travels home. Did
We love
Braden
you.
remember his passport wherever you are?
Oh shit!
Jesus, what's going on?
Follow us, Poison Rana. Give us a shout. We're gonna do a show tomorrow. Cheers. We love you. Goodbye.
Hey, Braden.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Cheers, guys.
Thank you guys.
All right, Braden
That is
Davie
Poison
joining
Rana.
us from Greensboro, North Carolina. Thank you very much. That's a long trip home.
Yeah, poisonrana.ca. They do a show on Sunday, actually. So go to youtube.com/@poisonranapod. You can and just subscribe to them and listen to their show. They also have a road trip show for their. I don't think the show itself is 12 hours, but they do do a road trip podcast for those of you who are patrons of theirs at Poison Rana. So thank you to those guys.
Okay, we're gonna continue with the calls. We're gonna blitz through these, but let's continue.
Let's go to some of these new callers here. Well, let's go to Matt from Montreal. Welcome, Matt.
Hey guys,
Hey, what's going on?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Mhm.
All right, cool. Shout out to Poison Rana to go there,
Yeah.
and I just want to say up front that I love Bruce Lord talking.
As
He's a
do
great
we.
talker.
Great review, guys. And I was just wondering, and I'm sorry if you already talked about it, but who do you think Pac is going to be? Who's going to be the next opponent for Pac?
Pac's opponent. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so it sounds like he's after Tony Khan. Maybe that'll be his first program. But what are you sensing here? Heel, right? Like if he's targeting the I would think babyface, promoter here. So who do you think, John?
I mean, you could put him in line with something to build up with Eddie Kingston. That's one option to go. I mean, yeah. I mean, you have such a deep roster at this point. I mean, you have so many different options of where you could go with him. I mean, that's only one path to have him towards. Who would you like to see him with, Matt?
I would like to see him against Jay White. I don't know
Okay.
if they ever went against each other.
Hmm.
And to answer your question, Wayne, my match of the night was, of course, the tag team match with Sting. I've been growing up with him. And the other point that I wanted to talk about was the presentation of Kylo. I was so happy to see him back. Man, these shorts, that shirt, and these socks and the shoes. I don't know. What do you guys think about this? Like, I'm really, really hyped to see him back. I think he looked like I don't know. He looked like he was injured and was ill or something.
He looked like a man who had just had his neck fused and just came back from it. I mean, I suppose this. I don't know. It depends on the story and depends on the character, right? I mean, clearly the man has gone through something. He got emotional just simply walking out there. So I think if there's like that level of promo within him that is trying to convey, hey, I've been through a lot of shit. Didn't think I'd come back. Maybe it fits, but I mean, we're not necessarily watching Kyle O'Reilly for his hairstyle, right?
I know. No, it's not the hairstyle. It's just I saw that he was crying on his way back. I was like, that T-shirt and those shirts. I don't know. I just think like for me, I was so happy to see him back again. It was like he looks like shit.
If he came out in a suit, it would be weird. I would say.
No, not a suit, but I mean something more. I don't know.
More superstar. I know what you're saying.
Matt wants business casual O'Reilly. That's what he's looking for.
Hey guys, thank you for the coverage, and I'm looking to the WrestleMania week with you guys. John, you have to put that schedule again.
It's up there.
It's up on the site. If you just go, it's right there on the tab. Hit on Mania, and the
thanks for this. I always look at it. See you guys.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. And shout out to John Cena for keeping that up to date. Postwrestling.com/mania. All right, let's go up next to Cody from Maine. Let's go first to Jeremy Samples. Sorry about that. Hey, Jeremy, what's up?
Hey, Willie. I was at the show in Greensboro tonight, too.
Oh,
I wish that I knew that Braden Davie were there. I would have loved to caught up with those guys. But, yeah, it was such a fun time. One thing they left out in the post show, the Sting had Tony Schiavone come over and do the It's Sting call out.
Oh, that's cool.
After the show, and he's like, I'm sure the fans didn't get to hear it tonight, so they wanted to hear it. One thing I thought was crazy was just the fan reaction throughout the whole show to different wrestlers. Like as soon as the Pac video hit, there was an amazing reaction from the crowd. Just different things like that surprised me. Like I thought they would have been a little bit more into the women's match. My match of the night was Sting. That's why I traveled there. And actually, I secured a way to listen to the commentary actually during the show, although it was actually on about a 1.5-minute delay from being there live. But I thought that JR and Toni told such a good story. I thought that last match was more of a story line match than anything, has been in any time recent. It's just such a good story and such a good way for Sting to go out. Braden Davie mentioned the merch. They had like 3 different designs of merch that said I was there for Sting's last match. One thing I did was they had like $150 early access where you could buy it and like just go in and not have any lines, first access to the merch stand. It was awesome. I didn't have to stand in any lines around the whole arena. Got the Sting shirt I wanted, the one with Sting on it there. And it was a great time. They also gave you a turnbuckle that had the pink Sting logo on it, a poster, and like an AEW tote bag. But it was great. I thought it was worth the money, not have to deal with the lines, be able to secure the merch I wanted. So yeah, it was just a fun time, and thank you guys so much for the shows that you guys do. It's so appreciated, and I really appreciate Wade's help earlier in the week, helping me set this up so that I could call in. I try not to call in all the time because I want to only add something whenever I can actually add something, because you guys do the best work out there. So I just really appreciate you guys.
Oh, well, thanks very much, Jeremy. I'm glad it sounded like you had a really great time at the show. So we appreciate you taking the time to call in and share your thoughts.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Please call in more often. And your connection sounds wonderful. Jeremy was so concerned that his connection wasn't going to sound good. He offered to buy a microphone while he was down there. And there's no need for that. Most of the time, everybody can just call in from their phone or laptops. And thank you.
Wade was such a good help, though. I mean, I just really appreciate it, Wade.
Thank you, Jeremy. Please call in more often.
Way helps me all the time. My technical deficiencies.
Now let's go to Cody from Maine. Welcome. Oh, I think you're muted. 1 second. So Cody is from Maine, but he also happens to be in Greensboro. So we're going to try to get him talking.
Maybe he lost his voice at Greensboro.
Yeah. Might have to reset your source or something.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Cody.
We'll come back to you.
Hang tight.
Yeah, we'll try to get you back.
Come back to you.
Hey, let's go up next to Andy B. Welcome, Andy B.
I guess hope you're well. So I get through this quickly. So my co-match of the night, in addition to the main event, was Danielson versus Eddie Kingston. I thought the fact that the story of the previous matches was Eddie was a better striker, Bryan the better grappler, and that was Eddie's one advantage, even though Bryan is the more complete wrestler. So the fact that this played into Bryan's strategy when he'd been cocky before gave this story a little added layer of depth, and it was respect to Eddie Kingston way before even the handshake. So you got to see Bryan dismantling Eddie's arm the way he does in his matches to set up the bell lock. You got Eddie firing up as he is the fifth pillar of heaven. And I thought, just as a pure story, I thought this match did the best thing on the night, and I was completely thrilled by it.
It was a phenomenal match. I really love that Kingston Danielson match. I mean, you had some really great options tonight of where you were going for a match. Like, this is going to be a very strong contender for show of the year. I know we're only in March, the beginning of March, but man, I think this is going to be a very tough show to top when you're looking at Danielson and Kingston and Ospreay and Takeshita, the retirement. I mean,
Orange and Strong was awesome. I thought FCC and FTR, or sorry,
and the FCC. I mean, they were
they shut it down, turn the feed off. No, BCC and FTR I thought was fantastic.
That was a great match. I mean, and you're going like 4 or 5 deep for some of these. Like, this was a really, really solid show, and I'm really curious how well this show performs, because it could be on the higher end. I think you would look at this to be, I think has the potential to be at least number 3 of AEW all time.
And given at least, our sort of very high praise for the show, how much of the audience that might have just tuned in for this particular night, how many of them do they continue to stay on and watch Dynamite, or, stick around until the next pay-per-view cycle?
And guys, so I completely agree with you. One of the best shows of the year, but I just have like a couple of nitpicks that I want to get out of the way. So I wasn't a fan of the character development in the world title match. So the theme of this story has been obsession, but like this idea of obsession overcoming these guys' desires to win the title feels a little bit caricaturish to me. And to a little bit where it kind of got muddied, like where does Hangman actually have to win? Was he actually in trouble because the Samoa Joe putting him in the thing in the clutch? That bit didn't come across very well to me. And there's also that element of the fact that while the story is about obsession, something driving the character arcs forward seems to be the audience reception. And this is especially the case with Swerve, where like he got over because he's this maniacal guy, and now he's like turning down this help from Prince Nana because of the audience reaction ostensibly. So for me, these character arcs feel a little bit clumsy. But yeah, apart from that, great show.
I don't completely disagree with you, Andy. Like, it's a very tricky situation, and I don't know if this was the intent. Certainly, when Swerve was invading Hangman's home, to threaten his baby, I don't think the intent was to long term turn him babyface and Paige heel. They are completely just kind of pivoting based on what the crowd wants. And to that end, maybe again, I give them a bit of leeway to see how well they can pivot in as organic of a fashion as possible. I don't disagree that like it's such a tricky scenario for them to navigate. They have to tell that story. They have to do the double turn. They have to still make Joe relevant as well. But given all of that, I think they maybe did as best as they could. But that like Corey thought it was the match of the night, or at least, like he did say it was the match of the night. So for at least several people, I respect Corey's opinion very much. It was a very effective story told. But thank you as always, Andy, for your thoughts. Let's try one more time here. Cody from Maine, are you there? Still don't hear you. Sorry, buddy. Yeah, it looks like your AirPods or something might be like improperly connected.
One more attempt.
Oh, there we go. We got you.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll ditch the AirPods then. Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I only caught your thoughts on the main event. And Braden,
you're in Greensboro, by the way.
Yeah, well, a bunch of other people, kind of took a lot of similar thoughts. But for me,
hold on a second. How long did you fly or did you drive? Because you're from Maine.
Yes, I flew down. Okay. So, yeah, I was in Greensboro for the past 48 hours or so, and I got a flight to catch in a few hours, so that'll be fun. But overall, that was just a crazy atmosphere and environment. I thought it really lived up to the hype and the expectations that you would hope that atmosphere would be. Up until the final three matches, I thought it was a good show. There were some ebbs and flows with the crowd, unfortunately being a little bit down towards the women's match, and even in the triple threat match at the start. I don't know if that's how it came across on pay-per-view, but it felt like it took a little bit for people to get into it. But then you hit those final three matches, and I couldn't have asked for a better show for what I ended up paying for. It's funny because for the past few weeks, John's joked at Don Callis calling Ospreay Takeshita the match of the decade. Might have an argument now compared to what it looked like it could have been. I think it hit a different level than most were expecting it to. I was very surprised by Hangman getting the second, biggest booze, for lack of a better term, of that entire card up until the Young Bucks. For me, I thought it'd be a little bit more mixed, but people are full steam ahead with the idea of booing Hangman and being 100% behind Swerve. So that double turn has absolutely taken full effect. And then there's not really much I can say about the main event. I don't think you could really ask for a better send-off. WrestleMania 24 was mentioned. Maybe Ric Flair had that perfect send-off that he ended up squandering, but I don't expect Sting to squander this. I think it was everything that a longtime fan of his could have asked for. And, despite the fact that walked 2 miles back to the Airbnb to not get price gouged on Uber costs. I don't know if that's what Braden Davie are going to do. I couldn't have asked for a better time tonight.
Thank you so much, Cody, for taking
Thanks
the
a
time.
lot for calling in, Cody.
Absolutely. You guys have a good night.
Thank you, Cody. All right, let's go up next to Bryan. Welcome, Bryan.
Hey, guys. Thanks for the review. I'll try and micro machines this. Thought this was a fantastic show. My match of the night, I'm neck and neck between Ospreay and Takeshita and Kingston and Danielson. Ospreay, there's a good acknowledgement that Will Ospreay, he goes here now. And I thought the world title match was very good. Sets the table for Joe versus Swerve one-on-one, but based on the finish, I think. And FTR versus Moxley and Claudio, very good. So happy to see Kyle O'Reilly back because I think the world of Kyle as a wrestler. And here he is looking like Flock era Billy Kidman. And the main event,
Maybe
enjoyable,
he's going to reunite
spectacle.
with Scotty Riggs.
I mean, there you go. Perfect. Yeah, and main event I thought was a massive spectacle, a lot of enjoyable moments, especially the entrance in the video. Darby Allin should probably take a page from the other Sting and send an SOS to the world and hope that someone gets his message in a bottle. Unless that bottle is glass, then I'll be more concerned. So that's all I got. It's late.
Oh my God.
Thanks
Brian,
again, guys.
A brilliant call, as always.
Thank you, Brian.
Giving credit to all versions of Sting at this late hour.
Very good. Let's go next to Hansi. Hansi, welcome.
What's going on, man? My match of the show was Ospreay Takeshita. I thought that was the work rate match that I had a prediction in my head that I'll probably steal the show for most people. I mean, I like the main event. I thought the main event was awesome. I shed a tear. The theater stuff, I cried, whatever. It just I when I first got in WCW, Sting was like one of like the main guys. Him and Vader were feuding, so like I always kind of compare him and Bret Hart like as being the faces of WCW during times when wrestling wasn't as popular. But I had a huge I always liked Sting's character. Like I explained on Collision, I always liked the Sting Luger story in WCW because it was unique, because I never saw like a good guy with a heel before and trying to convince the heel to be a good guy, you know what I mean? It's like it's always unique to me. So, and then the Crow Sting stuff, TNA, it's on and off with me, but I enjoyed it. I had a good time with the main event. The women's the two matches that I didn't really care for were the Scramble match and the women's match, and that's shocking because I like the build for the women's match a lot. Like I really thought I thought it was gonna get like 15-20 minutes at least, whatever, right? But I mean, it is what it is. But I enjoyed most of the card. I thought Claudio's tribute to Scott Steiner doing the power slam off of the Doomsday device was probably one of the most insane spots. But yeah, I can't complain about the card. I thought most of the matches delivered. But I just want to say thank you, Sting, man, with the call. It was a great career, man, and I got to see him once perform in Hamilton this past last year or so when they came to Dynamite. So
you saw the big dive, right?
Yeah, and then afterwards, when everyone's like, thank you, Sting, he's like, no, thank you. And then everyone will say something complimentary towards him. He's like, well, I'm gonna put it back to you again. Like he's just so polite, man. He's one of the coolest dudes ever. So I'm glad that I got to see his career. Like, I'm glad that he wasn't one of these tragic stories. You know what I mean? He's always been cool in my book. So I mean, all the best to him, and thank you for the review. And I know you guys want to get out of here. So
no, thank you, Hansi.
Thank you.
Take it easy, guys. Peace out.
Thank you, Hansi. All right, last call. Let's go to Muggin. Hey, Muggin.
Last but not least.
So we are. Hopefully this time.
Whoa! Are you next door? Look at this.
Nah. Hopefully my sound won't cut out unlike on Friday. Anyway, Ospreay Takeshita was a hood classic.
A hood classic.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's my match of the night.
Gotcha.
And it was a great showcase for Ospreay to the American audience, and it feels to me like he could be like he has faces of the company potential, Ospreay, but at the same time too, Takeshita should not be forgotten about. I mean, he in a lot of ways that match felt like a mirror match because they match up so well. As far as skills go, and they match up very well. And I was expecting some kind of split from Don Callis, and I love that he stayed out of it. There's no funny business, and I'm looking forward to Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher on Wednesday. That should be fun. Aussie Open Civil War. The tag title match definitely deserved that main event billing. Sting like most of the time when somebody retires, they usually put somebody over on the way out. This is an exception to the rule, and I'm glad Sting got to go out on a high note. And the Young Bucks were great foils for to get that heat and to they were great fools for that match just to see them lose. And I gotta say, pardon my tongue for saying this, Darby Allin is a sick motherfucker for having to jump through 2 panes of glass. Like, I mean, that looked gross. Seeing him bleed all over. And
it was gross. Yeah,
it was
awful.
Like, man, how old is this guy? 30 years old?
I don't even know. I think at any age it's pretty insane.
Like, listen, if he keeps this going at this rate, man, he'll be over the hill in 5 years.
When are we getting that Darby Allin retirement match?
Well, I mean, at the rate that it's going, it could be a lot sooner than we think if he keeps this up. I mean, I hope the powers that be rein him in for his own good. And lastly, Kingston and Danielson was fantastic as well.
Maybe Darby Allin's retirement run is like chain wrestling. You know, he comes in and just like, oh my god, it's an octopus stretch. Or like,
I love that. I love the use of Singh's sons. You know, dressing up as like, you know, both eras of Sting, like Surfer Sting, Wolfpack Sting, and of course, you know, Base Sting with the growth paint. Now that was a very cool use of the sons. And I'm also glad they avoided the usual trope of Ric Flair turning on him one more time. I'm also very glad Kyle O'Reilly came back, and I'm glad they didn't do the expected thing about him joining, you know, Adam Cole and company, because I feel like there's a lot of juice in Kyle O'Reilly on his own, because he's been gone for a year with neck fusion. So I mean, I think he's got like a very heartfelt promo in him when he does make his return probably on Wednesday. So I do see a program with O'Reilly against Undisputed Kingdom, and you know, knock on wood, if Cole gets better, you can put those two together, because they never phone it in when you put Adam and Kyle together.
Thank you, Muggin. Appreciate the call as always.
Have a good night. All right, there you have it.
What do you want to do next?
Do you want to skim through feedback? What do you
It's
want
up to you. I'm looking at you and just how you feel.
I'm not the one that you're the one that has to be up super early.
I do, yeah. Let's go through a few pieces of feedback here from forum.prostars.com. We have a lot of it here, and it just tells you the power of interest here in Sting. But this is a long show, so care to start us off, John?
Okay, Robbie from London. I never stay up for these Sunday pay-per-views, but for me, my wrestling fandom is just so connected to the Stinger, my favorite wrestler since I was 3, and goes on to state that I even went to Bound for Glory 2009 in full Sting cosplay. Wrestling tonight was great, but the emotion of bidding my all-time favorite goodbye, I will not forget. From that little Stinger in 1988 to this 39-year-old man with tears flowing. What a great night. From Robbie.
Let's go up next to Steve Grows Wheat, who says Eddie beating Bryan was awesome. Great to see him keep his crown. The 8-man was kind of awful. Couple fun moments, but most of the time the guys are sitting on the floor watching the damn match instead of being in it. Maybe not watch from the TV side, Magnus. Ospreay Takeshita, wow, amazing. Do you think he'll hold some secondary titles or go straight to the world title picture? And who's next for Joe? Wardlow is next for Joe. And do you see Takeshita Ospreay holding a secondary championship?
I'll say no.
I think they're going to peak him for All In. Like that, a championship match for All In seems to make sense to me. So I don't think he'll be in the title picture yet. I thought Kate had a great point on Collision Course last night, where like because of the rankings, they have this sort of structure now where Ospreay can work his way up, and therefore you don't have to put him in the title picture yet. So I don't know. I don't know what that means for secondary championships, but I don't think he needs it right now.
Okay, I'm going to go to Jay from Colorado. Fantastic show throughout, and I enjoyed every match, with maybe the women's title match being the low point. I was kind of disappointed with that match. I was expecting a banger out of those two, having so much history, but I thought the Sting retirement match played out perfectly. They made him look like a legend, and they had me on the edge of my seat with all the near falls. It was unfortunate the Sting was cut off at the end. Definitely one of the best shows of the year, and I'm looking forward to
he got cut off here.
It
looks like.
I mean,
you get out the time cue here, Jay from Colorado. Didn't finish your feedback. Okay, let's go to Mark, who says, year after year, I don't think any AEW pay-per-view delivers quite as hard as Revolution seems to. And this year was no different. So many times over the last 30-plus years of my fandom, I've seen childhood favorites go out due to injury or death, or just stick around beyond their expiration date or flounder away. Tonight, we saw the celebration of one of the all-time legends going out on his terms in front of his fans and peers, being given a worthy send-off. Wrestling is so lucky to have an AEW. Nobody was going to give Sting this sort of send-off elsewhere. This is an organization that embraces wrestling history and celebrates it at every turn. What a night. I'll never forget seeing Sting on the cover of the PWI 500 in 1992 on a newsstand at Shoppers Drug Mart. He immediately jumped out at me. It's been an incredible journey. Happy retirement, Sting.
Anthony writes, seeing Sting and his sons on the ramp for his entrance told me everything I needed to know about this match. In 1992, when Canada did their free preview of certain American networks that we didn't have already, the first image I remember seeing was Sting. Sting and Vader was the first match I remember watching, and seeing this bleach blonde man fighting a giant of a man had me hooked. I was always a Stinger, and seeing him get the send-off he deserved made me misty-eyed. Thank you, Sting, for being around as long as I have been alive. What a compliment.
Lastly, let's end things off here with Dr. Alex Patel, who says, I'm probably not as high on this as most people because I hated the booking of Danielson beating Eddie on Dynamite, telegraphing this loss, and the women's match was terrible. But overall, lots of good to great matches. The Ospreay match was match of the night, and the Sting send-off was total insanity. I wish they had planned the post-match promo a bit better, but overall, it was a great tribute to one of the last true legends from the 80s still active. I love that they let him go out with a win and sent the crowd home happy. Overall, one of their better pay-per-views.
All right. Well, thank you, Alex Patel, for sending in your feedback and for all of your calls tonight as we are clocking this one in at just after 2 a.m. Eastern time. Just wanted to make a quick mention from the press conference. Tony Khan did state they'll be doing a tournament for the vacant tag titles, and Jay White will be taking on Darby Allin on the Big Business Show on March the 13th. And Brandon Thurston also tweeted out that Tony Khan was asked about their television negotiations. They're still in the exclusive phase with WBD regarding their rights renewal. So that's worth noting. They are not at a period yet where they can negotiate with outside companies. And also stated the gate for Revolution was in the neighborhood of $1 million, give or take. They stated they didn't price this as aggressively as some other events, which is interesting.
Interesting. And also makes sense why Jay White wouldn't specifically mention Darby Allin in the challenge, I guess, given his unknown status after being planned to do that insane dive off of the ladder and who knows what else. So cool.
They did a bit of a different format for the press conference too, where Renee was in the Byron Saxton role hosting it. And I just caught that Joe was there. Sting and Darby showed up. Will Ospreay was there. Tony did his bit at the end as well. So that was the press conference you can check out afterwards. If you didn't get enough wrestling all in one night, you can now hear people talk for even more.
After this podcast,
can you imagine watching a pay-per-view and then listening to people talk about that event for hours on end afterwards?
Imagine paying $6 a month for it at postwrestlingcafe.com. Outrageous. What are these people thinking?
Join now and you will be on board for all of our extra shows. This week, we have got not just Rewind to SmackDown and Collision Course on the Cafe, but on Thursday, we're going back to June of 2018. If you thought tonight was the match of the decade, well, we might be reviewing the match of last year's decade. The last decade, it's late. Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada from June of 2018 at Dominion. That is going to be the subject of Rewind Away number 152. So join now. It's the beginning of the month. Get the most bang for your buck at postwrestlingcafe.com now, and you'll be on board for all of our bonus shows throughout the month of March, which will include a new edition of Talk, Ask Away, multiple editions of Rewind Away,
Rewind to SmackDown every single Friday, Collision Course every Saturday. We talked about Ric Flair's retirement last week, and just in our entire archive of a lot of great audio and support. Postwrestling.com.
But if you're thinking, no way, well, the least you can do on this channel, hit the subscribe button. It does a nice little like explosion when you hit subscribe. It's a nice feeling when you subscribe to a channel, costs you nothing. And then you're locked in on the Post Wrestling YouTube channel for eternity.
Until you unsubscribe.
You never unsubscribe from a YouTube channel. No one ever does. It's like unfollowing people on Twitter. You got to be a real asshole to get unfollowed.
Yeah. Thank you, Matthew, for the super chat here. Just a thank you for the coverage. Thank you, Matthew, for the support.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We're back Monday night following Raw, so we will speak with you then. Again, thanks to all the calls tonight, all of your feedback, and that is it for our Revolution review.